Good morning. I'm Callie, and I have a problem with little free libraries. I feel as if the problem can best be summarized in a visual. So behind me, like most booktubers, I have a bookshelf. And this is my bookshelf. Without all the books I took from the Little Free Library, I'm pretty sure. The problem with the Little Free Library isn't that they exist. I actually think they're great. They're a great thing. That was clickbait. The problem I have with them is that when I walk by them, drive by them, whenever I see them, I am compelled to stop whatever the hell I'm doing, driving, walking, skateboarding. I don't skateboard. I don't know why I said that. And look through them. And every time I peruse, I always have to grab some out. I have so many Little Free Library books and I just keep acquiring them. Especially because now I live in a neighborhood where there's like multiple Little Free Libraries just everywhere. So whenever I go for a walk, I come home with a treasure. Point of me saying all of this is basically to say that I'm going to do a tackle my TBR style video, but instead of it being with like random books I've been buying and just the ever-growing TBR list that I have, I'm going to do it with Little Free Library books, because when it comes to my TBR, I tend to read my library books first, the books I bought and I'm most excited for next, and then go back to library books because those will always have due dates and they're always coming in. I'm a library girl. I'm a library fiend. Read the random ones I picked up off the street, essentially. Anyway, before we get into it, I think I'm gonna kind of show you some of my craziest finds. The Golden Compass, mass market paperback. The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. The sequel to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Didn't know I had a sequel till I found that book. This hardback of this book called Heir by Sabaa Tahir, which has like scoliosis. Look at her. She's bent. It's like a Walmart exclusive edition that's completely destroyed. That's a crazy find. I just collect them. Like a crow collects shiny things. I collect weird books. Another crazy one is this fantastic condition hardback Fourth Wing book in a Little Free Library. And it was a year, maybe 6 months after I had actually read Fourth Wing, so I had no reason to grab this. But you know what I did? I grabbed it anyway because that's a crazy find. I feel like I found a treasure and I just had to put it on display on my treasure shelf. I have this book for no reason other than the fact that I found this in a Little Free Library. That's crazy. Needless to say, there's a few others that are interesting, but those I think were the most interesting ones. So I'm going to do a tackle my TBR style video. So essentially for the next 7 days, I'm going to read a book a day, but the book a day is going to be the books from my Little Free Library, basically collection that I have now strewn about all over the floor. Let's go over the 7 that I've picked. I decided on books that were between the 200 and 300 page limit so that they're pretty easy to read within a day. So the next 7 books I'm going to be reading over the course of the next 7 days are going to be Verity by Colleen Hoover. I told myself back in the day when I discovered who Colleen Hoover was that I'm never going to read her of my own volition. I really am only going to read Colleen Hoover if it falls into my lap somehow. Someone practically forces me to read their copy or Little Free Library finds. Verity's the more thrillery one of her romances, and so that could either be really fun to hate read or really obnoxious to read just in general. Next, I have The Tattooed Girl by Joyce Carol Oates. This is a book about a guy who's a writer, I think. Yeah, he's a reclusive author, and so he's looking for an assistant to live with, can't find a man. So of course he decides to live with this tattooed girl, but psych, she's an anti-Semite, and I think he's Jewish. So that's weird concept, so I picked it up and I figure, it's short. This is going to be part of the stack. We have King of Battle and Blood by Scarlet St. Clair. This I grabbed before I knew romantasy was a big thing. I grabbed these books over the course of many years. So Isolde de Lara considers her wedding day to be her death day. This girl goes to get married to the vampire king, but she's going to get married to him, but it's to kill him. But it fails, and so he's just kind of torturing her and being a dick. It's a romantasy vampire some book. I'm scared of this book. It might be really good. It probably will be really bad. We have Vendetta by Lisa Harris. This is about a girl who works for the Missing People Task Force, and she's trying to find a missing person. And the man who kidnapped the missing girl maybe kidnapped her sister 10 years ago. Dun dun dun. Fun, goofy mystery thriller. It's super, super short. The other book I have is The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barbery. This is about an old woman a young girl and a Japanese man, and they all live in a hotel in Paris. And essentially it's this like precocious child and this grumpy old woman and then like a random Japanese man all getting along in this hotel during, I don't even know like what they're doing in the book. It just kind of says that like they have a couple personal things to go through. One of my favorite genres of fiction is precocious child, old grumpy woman. It can't be men. Like I love when it's a precocious young girl and a grumpy old woman. A great example of this is the Summer book by Tove Jansson. Their relationship with themselves and who they are as people, along with their relationship with womanhood and femininity. I think that like exploring femininity when a woman isn't in her quote unquote prime, you know, someone who's past it or someone who hasn't reached it yet, and dealing with the potential of life and how that potential of life can get squandered a little bit in being a woman, and how so much of femininity and womanhood is serving people and losing yourself in marriages and motherhood and, you know, homemaking, all those different things. I don't know, an exploration of youth, grief, probably, womanhood, growing up, from what I can gather. Seems interesting. Next we have Stay With Me by Ayobami Adebayo. This is by a Nigerian author. It has those deckled pages that everybody hates. I just thought I'd show that off. This is a book about a woman and a man that got married. They like fell in love in college and then they got married, and they agree that they're not going to have a polyamorous relationships. It's quite common in some cultures, but them as a couple are having trouble conceiving, and so it's kind of, there's a lot of pressure basically being put on the relationship that they should introduce a new woman into the relationship so that they can have children. And so it's about her trying to save her relationship by getting pregnant, and like what extent will she go to try and get pregnant in order to save her relationship. And then the 7th book on my 7 books in 7 days list is The Museum of Extraordinary Things by Alice Hoffman. Even though Beach Read is my least favorite Emily Henry book that I've read so far, I thought that this book sounded a lot like the book that January was writing in Beach Read, if that makes sense. So it's about this girl who is the daughter of the like sinister person running this Coney Island freak show, and this Russian photographer who takes pictures of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. And then they kind of get embroiled in a mystery together behind some young woman's disappearance. I don't know, it just kind of felt like this might be the book January was writing in Beach Read. And I was like, that's such a weird comparison to make. I'm going to pick that up. So in the next 7 days, I'm going to read 1 book a day. And then going forward from there, I'm going to try and go through some of my books and pick out ones that I can get rid of, because I probably have plenty. And I will not only put back the books that I picked up and have read now, I will take out books and donate them to Little Free Libraries as sort of a give back for me taking these books for so long. So I have finally finished the reading for this section of the video. Before we get into my reviews and wrap up of this whole experience, let me just say that I am a major vibes reader, and as time goes on, I've realized that translates to me not enjoying binge reading books that are not meant to be binge read. Like some books, you know, they keep you hooked all day. You just can't put that shit down. But like some are exhausting to read in like less than 4 sittings. And you know, that's just my truth. Okay. I enjoy slower reading. So what was meant to be a week of heavy reading turned into a lot of procrastination, and then like multiple months of me putting off finishing this video, which does defeat the purpose of the challenge. However, we're here, we're done, and I obviously have thoughts. Before we get too into it, allow me to introduce my personal star rating system, because it's always been very vibes based with a strong consideration for the actual quality of the work. What do I mean by that? If I read a book and I don't like it, it's not going to be 5 stars. I don't care if it's the best freaking written book in the world. If I don't like it, it's not getting, like, it's probably not even going to be a 4 star. And when it comes to writing, I really, really enjoy well-written craft, like really great usage of the English language. I like when there's a lot of skill just behind it. And then also, if I think the book thematically is really good, so if I can like really, if it stimulates my brain and it makes me want to think. I recently found this video actually that goes over like a reader's hierarchy of needs. It's a writing advice video, and I'm like stealing it so I can kind of make all of that make sense into a tangible rating system. Essentially, like it's triangle, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but sits for a reader. The bottom is linguistic significance. So the actual, like, is the book written in English and do I speak English? The second tier up is literal significance. Does it have is it a story? Like, is it a story that's written that makes sense? And then the third tier up is going to be your emotional significance. So does it impact me emotionally? Do I feel things when I read it? And then above that, we have intellectual significance. This is when I talk about like the craft and the themes. I think it's a pretty big jump for me from like, this book is written and it's competent to this book is written and it's competent and it's really good. And then the very top tier is personal significance. So I've equated it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. And like I said, there's technical things I look for. And I think that there's like 5 real big pillars of writing that I like to consider when I'm rating a book. We have the world building or the setting. So like obviously in contemporary fiction, it doesn't need to have the world built, but I do think that contemporary fiction should have a really strong sense of place, because setting does impact how we interact with people, with our lives. If I live somewhere that's dark and gloomy and gray, that's going to affect it's going to affect your characters, right? Like if they have seasonal depressive disorder, if they live somewhere that's gloomy and gray, they're going to be depressed all the time. And if someone lives somewhere that's cold half the year, it's going to affect their habits, right? Like there's just, the setting needs to have a strong sense of place within the story. It compounds onto world building for like fantasy and science fiction. I consider the structure or the plot. So this is like your pacing as well. So like if the book is a mystery, but it's slow paced, that's annoying. And if it's a fantasy, but it's too fast paced, that's also annoying. And then like if it's structured well out, if it feels like all the beats are being hit at the right spot and it's not like weird. Craft I already talked about, and then the other 2 pillars are going to be like dialogue and characterization. I think that a lot of people don't talk about dialogue enough. I think that dialogue is something that's very important because it can like make or break, I think, some books. Because if the dialogue is bad, it jumps out at you off the page and you do not want to, like, it just is annoying. Like, why are you reading this conversation? And dialogue isn't just what the characters are saying either. It's like it's the tags, it's the unspoken between the 2 characters, what's not being said, right? Because I think that really well written dialogue, it keeps body language in mind, right? Like how we talk to each other with facial expressions, and like I talk with my hands a lot, etc. I have always rated dialogue as like is it great, is it good, or is it bad? Great dialogue jumps off the page for being great. Bad dialogue jumps off the page for being bad. If you don't notice the dialogue, it's probably just good. It's passable. And then characterization, obviously. I am a character reader. Like if I can't connect with the characters, I will not read the book. I'm not a projector. I'm not going to read some book with a character that's like half baked and be like, and just fill in all her blanks with my own personality traits. I want the characters to have personality, because when I read books, I don't project onto them. I'm hanging out with them. If I'm hanging out with this boring ass character, I don't want to read the book. I don't want to hang out with this character, and I don't really care about their story. Harsh, but true. That's a very long-winded way of saying you'll get it as we go. First book I read is Vendetta by Lisa Harris. This book follows Agent Nikki Boyd, who's an investigator for the Tennessee Missing Persons Task Force. I do not remember the names of any of this stuff. I'm a pretty good rememberer. I try to remember everything I read. I could not remember this girl's name. I could not remember that it was a missing persons task force. Those don't exist in real life. Her sister went missing when they were teenagers, and she thinks that the kidnapper is back after another girl goes missing, and the guy uses all the same calling cards as the guy who kidnapped her sister. This book takes place mostly in some national park. I don't remember which one. It's in Tennessee, but it fails to describe it other than like forest or river, grass. I am from Colorado. I am completely unfamiliar with the landscape of Tennessee. I've never been to this park. I barely even had heard of this park before this book. Honestly, I don't go to that area of the country very often. So I found myself imagining inconsistent landmarks. So some parts of the forest in my head looked like Colorado forests, which are just pine trees, dead, a little bit of like sagebrush. And others look like a dense Midwestern forest. And then others look like rolling green valleys for some reason. Like none of these like ecosystems work all in one forest. I have no idea what this park looks like. I didn't feel like looking it up. I didn't. And so I couldn't get a real clear sense of place. Like some of the vibes are all right because like camping, but like again, I can't visualize what camping looks like here versus what camping looks like where I'm from in Colorado. It's just not very striking. When we're talking about the plot of this book, it's very fast-paced. See, it's pretty thin. She's like, what, 250 pages, 200 pages? There are a bunch of short paragraphs. It was a bunch of short chapters. So it's very fast-paced, which I think is good. It's a thriller. This girl is missing and they only have 24 hours to find in a big national park or national forest or something. And like, that's pretty dire because it's very, very difficult to locate people in national parks, national forests. It's like a problem. I flew through these chapters. This was one of the only books I was actually able to get done in the 1 day time period I gave myself. But this has what I'm going to call an and then plot. Some plots are causation plots where the actions of the characters and the world directly influence the story. Whereas this is an and then plot. So it's just a collection of random events that just kind of keep the story moving. At one point, the kidnapped girl's mother just shows up with a gun and then she shoots an officer in the leg. And at another point, there's like a random car chase because some like hunter in the park matched the description of like typical white guy. Think of the most average middle-aged white man. That's the description. So like every white man looks like that. And then he's like, I'm just a hunter. And turns out he's a poacher. So he gets arrested for that. Okay, cool. Fun and exciting. But like we still haven't found the girl. The events don't really tie to one another with cohesion. It's just things happening. And we meet the killer literally right before he's revealed as the killer. This guy that like works at the park is showing them a campsite that's supposed to have some evidence or whatever. And Nikki is like, this looks really placed. Like this looks like this piece of evidence looks like it was just set down here and not dropped. And so the guy who apparently has been a volunteer at the park for years, this old man or whatever, oh, he's the killer. It's not a spoiler because like you don't follow him in this book and you're not connected to him at all. Our FMC, Miss Nikki, is dating this like Mr. Perfect type. I think his name is Ryan. This whole book, she's harping on how perfect he is on paper. And they're just missing this spark. It feels like he's hiding something sinister deep down. So here I am thinking that this like fucking man who we never meet, by the way. No, we meet him at the end. Never mind. I'm thinking he's the killer. He was a red herring. I actually don't even think he was a purposeful red herring. I think I was just trying to figure out who it was. Not even the killer. It's a kidnapper. But the thing is like this man is brought up so much. Why do we bring up this man so much for him not to be the kidnapper? He's supposed to be her development. And I guess because women in their late 20s are just trying to find the one. Because Miss Nikki Boyd is single and she's like 29. And you know what that means? She's decrepit. She's an old woman. How's she ever going to get married now? Anyway, there's just no setup and payoff, which is like one of the main points I think of a good mystery. So I literally read this book and then I was just craving a really good mystery. Such a fast-paced book, no structure whatsoever. If I want to talk about like the writing style, it's simple, it's easy to read, no distinct personality though. The dialogue is just also, girl, it's actually so cliche, the dialogue. It's so bad. It's just cringy cliches left and right. It's like, you need to see this. You would never guess what was lurking down below. Like that kind of stuff where it's like, people actually still write like this? And then there's this one part of the book where the two love interests, because we have Nikki and we have the husband of her dead best friend. Yep, that's the love interest. The husband of her dead best friend. Which I could go on a whole side tangent here because this book completely negates and diminishes Nikki's friendship with her best friend, I think Katie, because Katie's relationship with her husband was far deeper and far more important because he was her husband. Girl, you've known Katie since you were children and you're saying that he's more important. Be so fucking for real right now. Especially because she like, this man, he's given the vibe that he killed her. She and her dead best friend's husband are having this like moment and like, ooh, jump scare. They discuss their faith in God amidst this troubling time because his wife is dead and her sister is missing. Oh my God. God is so good and he just works in mysterious ways. I'm not against religion in books. Obviously, write whatever you want. I'm against censorship. And even if I disagree with what's being stated, but like even when I was religious, that's a whole story. I hated when books would divert from the entire narrative just to like preach some God bullshit. Like every time a book preaches at you about God, it's like, I've heard this a million times before because there's like 4 different teachings of God. It's like, he works in mysterious ways, never open your legs. And I can't come up with 2 more funny examples. I think it's important for a book to have a message or a theme, but like it should jump off the page without ever having to be stated. You should never state your theme within your work. That's tacky. To a similar vein, it's just like, why are we going so in depth into God right now? There's a child missing and she's just like, my life sucks. There's a child missing. It was just bad dialogue too, because it's just like them just yapping about their life story and the other person just yapping about their life story, and then they're like, God works in mysterious ways. Character wise, hated them. They're one-dimensional, and I may be giving the author too much credit right now, but they do feel like real people. And I've met these types of people. There do exist these very boring, and I'm going to say it, white people that are very religious, and they're not deep people or inherently introspective. They just love their family and they love God. So these people felt like real people, just people without complexity. Her love interest, the husband of her dead best friend, is a flat one-dimensional man, which like did somehow feel intentional though, because like listening to him talk did feel like talking to a simple Christian man. So I don't know if I'm making any sense, but this book makes like the Wonder Bread people of the world the main characters. They're real, but like why the fuck do I want to read about them? This book got a wonderful 1-star rating. I honestly only finished it for the video, but yeah. The one I read after this, we have King of Battle and Blood, which I actually don't have a physical copy of anymore because I gave it to my friend to borrow. After that religious thriller fiasco, I read Vampire Smut. It takes place in a vaguely mapped out world that's vaguely European, except our main girl is from the island nation, which is vaguely Polynesian. Some woods are described. The nations don't feel that separate from one another, and when they travel, it doesn't give off the vibe that they're like actually traveling. And the magic system is built around this vague idea of vampires and witches, and there are some fun nods to different versions of vampire lore, stuff I really didn't even know about, which makes me feel compelled to give this a little bit more flowers, I guess, than a random Vampire Smut book. But the world building was certainly put aside for the sake of vibes, which were, I gotta say, quite vampiric. Our main character, whose name escapes me, is a spunky 26-year-old who doesn't need a man. She plans to inherit her kingdom from her father and rule alone. You know, no husband. She's ruling stag, if you will. But our vampire king, a blonde man, threatens their borders, you know, because reasons. And this FMC basically agrees to marry him to prevent the war from encroaching onto her land, because she values her land and her people. Although her people are still being killed by a mysterious outside force. Anyway, never mind about that. Her and the Vampire King are too busy flirting and fucking. They arrive in his kingdom after like traveling from hers to his. Very little actually happens though outside of the smut, I'm gonna be honest. We do get to learn about how he became a vampire eventually near the end. Plus there's like this other hot bitchy woman who's blonde who we can root against because she's been feeding our Vampire King for some time now, which is a very intimate experience. Obviously, you know, by the end, because it's a romantasy, there's like a big love confession, which is so out of left field actually, because these characters, while I do admit they have sexual chemistry, they have no like personal chemistry. Like there's no romance that happens between them to make you think that they would like, I know sometimes love confessions, they happen on the page before they actually happen, and this was not one of those books. And then there's also this like huge reveal near the end, which I'm not going to spoil in case you're wanting to read some goofy ass vampire smut. But when we find out why the Vampire King was like obsessed with our FMC from the minute he laid his eyes on her, made me roll my eyes so hard they got stuck in the back of my head. Girl, I had to fish them out. I had predicted it too, which is the most annoying part, but literally when I thought of this idea, I was like, there's no way that's what it is. Yeah, that's what it was. I'm not going to tell what it is. That's a spoiler. Like, the smut was fun. The story was odd. The, like, nod at historical folkloric vampires, you know, was cool. I, like, appreciate that kind of stuff. So, like, that's a 2-star book. It's not a good book, but I did enjoy it. Anyway, the next book I attempted was Verity. You can see I did not get all the way through. When I mentioned with Vendetta, I was like, the only reason I finished this book was because I was doing it for a video. This one, I couldn't do it. So essentially, let's lay out the groundwork of this book. You have Lo and Ashley. I hate that name. She is a writer on the brink of financial ruin, right? And her mom sucks. She's been taking care of her mom in a 2-bedroom apartment she can't afford, and her books don't sell that well, so she like is just in debt. And then her mom dies because her mom had cancer, and then now no money, no family. Her apartment is evicting her. It sucks. Life sucks out here. She's been picked out for a job to finish the series of well-regarded author Verity, because Verity got in a really bad car accident and she's essentially stuck in hospice for the time being. They don't know if or when she'll ever like wake up from her coma. Series, which is like this edgy series that's told from the perspective of the villains. That's why it's so popular. On the way to the meeting, Miss Lo and Ashley, which witnesses a man's head explode on the street. He like trips into the road and a fucking semi runs him over. That is the start of our beautiful novel. And then she like has to run to the bathroom. She's like, oh my God, that's so inconvenient. And she like needs a new shirt. And then our main male character gives her a shirt. She gets this job. Yay. She moves into Verity's house. The man that gave her the shirt obviously was Verity's husband. And then we learn about the two characters as we go forward. We learn about Lowen. No, we don't really learn anything about Lowen. All we need to know about Lowen has been learned. But we're learning about Verity. And this book goes between like a manuscript that Lowen found of Verity's autobiography that's like a tell-all, and then like the real world and what's going on within the real world. This autobiographical manuscript that we switch between is so painfully boring. It's this girl's trying to write like a tell-all about her life. It's an autobiography. She's just writing smut. She's just like, yeah, then me and the husband I'm obsessed with for no goddamn reason. This man is a cardboard cutout. She's like, the man that I'm obsessed with, we were fucking, and then we were fucking again, and then we were, oh my God, and then I got pregnant. Oh. And then she like tries to give herself a hanger abortion. I'm just going to be upright with it. But it doesn't work. So obviously it's implied that she murdered her two children because they're dead at this point in the book. Like when Lowen gets to the house, Verity's two twin daughters are dead. So like it's implied now that like Verity killed them because she was so obsessed with her husband that she didn't want her husband to give attention to their children. Yeah, she kind of sucks. She sucks. And it's like, if I was reading this manuscript, if I was Lowen and I found this manuscript buried in a box while I was looking for the notes to finish the series in Verity's office, I would close that book. I would not like keep reading it. Like the fact that Lowen is so obsessed with this very boring, mundane manuscript. Like I don't want to read about a woman who wants to murder her own children. As somebody who like, it is not in the cards right now in my life, right? But like if you are so obsessed with this man, and he's the perfect man, why can't you talk to him about this? Why can't you talk to him about not giving birth because you don't want to? I'm of the mindset that like if you can't talk with the person who got you pregnant about the pregnancy and how much you maybe don't want it, then why the fuck are you so obsessed and in love with him? This man deserves none of your love and all of your ire. And I cannot keep rooting for him because this man that Verity's obsessed with is very obviously being set up to be Lowen's love interest in this stupid ass book. And I have very few reasons to DNF a book. I very rarely will DNF in a book. The number one main reason that will always get me to DNF a book is if the romantic pairing is so hard to get behind. There's romantic pairings I don't like in a lot of books. That's fine. But there's a difference between someone I don't really like, but like I get it, and a romantic pairing that I so much cannot root for that like, why the am I reading about these characters flirting with each other? It makes me mad. I don't want to read about you flirting with each other. That's why I DNF'd the Match trilogy when I was 11. I could not root for a man who was essentially cheating on his vegetable wife and the most boring woman alive. And so I couldn't keep reading it. I really couldn't. And the other thing too is like if they were annoying but like the Verity storyline was interesting, I would keep reading it. But like I really didn't give a shit about Verity's life. I didn't give a shit about her autobiography. So this book is the worst that I've read so far. Vendetta was bad, but in like a boring Christian thriller. It was just a very vanilla story with like very little skill put into it. That's fine. I can tolerate that. But this book, I don't understand. People try to give this book some merit. Like it was creepy. No, it wasn't. It's so cliched. And anything in this book that is original is annoying. This was my first dip into Colleen Hoover and probably my last. I have no interest in like going out of my way to find her books. They have to fall into my lap. This one did. And I was thoroughly disappointed. Like I said, I haven't even finished it. And I know that the husband kills Verity in the end. And I know that Verity's fucking crazy. That's fine. And like she's obsessed with this man for no reason, which is fine. Like, yeah, she's obviously not right in the head. But like there is no reason for Lowen to like this man either. Jeremy is like crying laughing at a joke that's like, what's red and shaped like a bucket? A blue bucket painted red. Let me gouge out my eyes, actually. The book and the language of this is already so blasé and so childlike. Like, oh my God, let me see if I can find something to read out loud because I have so many reasons why I DNF this book. We'll just start at the top of chapter 9. I only arrived there 5 days ago, but it seems like longer. The days here drag, whereas in New York, well, New York minute. I heard Myrna tell Jeremy this morning that Verity had a fever, which is why she didn't bring Verity down at all today before she left for the evening. I wasn't sad about that. It meant I didn't have to be in her presence or look at her from my office window during their outdoor breaks. I'm looking at Jeremy, though. He's sitting alone on the back porch staring out at the lake, leaning back in a rocking chair that he hasn't rocked in over 10 minutes. He's completely still. Every now and then, he remembers to blink. He's been out there for a while now. I wish I knew what thoughts are going through his head right now. Is he thinking of the girls, of Verity? Is he thinking about how much his life has changed in the past year? He hasn't shaved in a few days, so his stubble is getting thicker. It looks good on him, but I'm not sure much could look bad on him. I lean forward on Verity's desk and drop my chin in my hand. I immediately regret moving because Jeremy notices. He turns his head and looks at me through the window. I want to look away, force myself to appear busy, but it's obvious I've been staring at him. Now that I'm leaned forward on a desk with my head propped up in my hand, it would look worse if I tried to hide it at this point, so I just smiled gently at him. That's fine. I cannot read that. I cannot read that. The fact that the narration sounds like a third grader. No, I'll give her some credit. A fifth grader. It sounds like a fifth grader is thinking and talking like, I'm crashing out over this book. We're done. We're not talking about Verity anymore. I DNF'd it. It sucks. Dramatic lighting change because I wanted the like dark moody look, but the light outside is like blinding, right? The next book that I read is The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barbery. This book follows a petulant child who wishes to off herself and a grumpy old woman who hates rich people. So from the get-go, this sounds like right up my alley. These two characters are presumed to meet each other, share conversations about mortality, and both evidently kind of bond with this new tenant in the building, a Japanese man named Ozu. And then for 60% of this book, we're offered nothing but ramblings from our two main characters. The titular character Ozu isn't even introduced until well past the halfway point. Overall, this book is just fine. It relishes far too much in overly verbose language and suffers from white room syndrome. There isn't a clear sense of space or place until we get to see Ozu's apartment later on. And the setting is really just vaguely French. And it tries to postulate about life and death and beauty, but it just kind of comes across as very, I'm 14 and this is really deep, rather than offer any like actual insight into the matter. There were moments when Renee and Paloma truly shined in like the middle to the end of the book, and I saw their flaws and their personhood so vividly that I felt utterly bamboozled that didn't seem to exist throughout this entire book. It takes far too long to get going and almost nothing happens. And instead we're dropped into this like vague setting, so character A or B can ramble on and on about whatever interested them that day. It's like a journal, but not a journal. And I can see the structure almost working, but maybe this is a translation issue because this book was originally written in French. It suffers from verbosity. There's tangents constantly. Paloma thinking about her death and how she's gonna do it and how much she hates everybody, which is so 12 years old of her. And then you have Renee who like she goes in random tangents thinking about how she's so smart and no one knows that she's smart because she's just a door person. Girl, there's nothing I hate more than a character relishing in how much smarter than everybody else they are. Like, sit down. You sound like the author right now. The author thinks they're smart. I found myself dozing off in these tangent segments, having to read and literally reread them over and over to get a clue. And then ultimately, the tangent would matter very little to the actual story, and my time spent on the passage would just be fraught, like out rereading pages for no reason. And then, girl, what the hell was that ending? It was abrupt. It left me like wondering, is it supposed to mean something? Is this supposed to be absurd? Is it like a weird anti-suicide campaign? I just couldn't tell. It felt so out of place. We had all these interesting moments of these characters talking about life and learning about mortality and beauty. And I don't know, like it feels like there should be something here. But it was, like I said, it was just rambly. The book rambled. I think I gave this book 2 stars. I feel like there's not much else I can say about it. Like I said, it's just, he has something to say about it. Like, I kind of felt like I was getting into a reading slump after reading that book. I don't know, there was something about it. I just couldn't do it. And then the next book I read was Stay With Me by Ayobami Adebayo. And this book is devastating, incredibly compelling, and it explores themes kind of around familial loyalty and then just grief in general. It follows our 2 characters, Yejide and Akin, and they've been married for multiple years now, but they still have not conceived a child, much to the chagrin of Akin's family. His mother insists that he takes another wife to pass on the family legacy because he's the firstborn son of his family, but him and Yejide are happily monogamous. Naturally, his mother meddles, which sets off a chain of events that all reflect the sentiment in the title, Stay With Me. This book does take place in Nigeria, and in Nigeria, they still practice polygamy in a lot of places. This book takes place in the late 80s, early 90s, and these characters themselves don't want to practice polygamy, but it is practically forced upon them by their families because it's something that is seen as so normal. As a man, you're supposed to have as many children as possible and a bunch of wives in order to do so. Yejide is interesting too because her mother was the second wife of her father, and her mother died in childbirth. So Yejide grew up without any siblings, and even though she had like a bunch of stepmoms, the the like family unit of the mom and her children is so sacred that she was never like allowed to participate in whatever these families are doing. So she was almost effectively an orphan within her whole family structure. So for her, Akin is this really important person because he matters to her. She's a part of his family. And the reason she wants to have kids is so that she can finally have this like sacred family unit that she never got to have as a child. I feel I can't go too far in depth either on this book because without like heavy spoilers, because the story is really best experienced as it unravels. And what I wasn't expecting is this book splits between the point of view of Yejide and Akin, though not totally clearly. Like it doesn't like tell you at the top of the chapter who is narrating now. It just kind of like starts talking in that new voice. And like I don't think this is a bad thing. I don't think that authors need to give a bold chapter title in order to like to figure out who's narrating. I think that usually you can just kind of figure it out based on how it's going. And this book almost unfolds as if they're confessing their side of the story to the other, but they're also confessing to us, the reader. So this book really just reads as like a very long confession. Their characters like Yejide and Akin are so strong and they have such a clear presence on the page. And like this book, I had to put it down multiple times in order just to process the devastating things happening to the two of them. There were parts that made me uncomfortable. There were parts that made me like just so sad. My cortisol was going up in certain parts of this book, girl. Like I had to put it down. And like this book almost put me into a slump, not because it's bad, but because like I couldn't handle the amount of emotional devastation that this book was putting me through. Because it's just, I don't know, it's such a real relationship between these two characters. It plants us directly in Elisa, Nigeria. I did not look up how to pronounce that. I'm so sorry. Amidst political turmoil resulting in military gangs, dangerous protests, and an ongoing coup. Like they multiple times talk about an election, and then the election doesn't go through anything, and then there's a gang again, they're overthrowing the government. Like there's this backdrop of unrest and uncertainty, and their relationship is also full of unrest and uncertainty simply because they cannot conceive. Our characters grapple with their outer world falling apart simultaneously with their inner one, and then the language itself, like the way that the book is written, is unashamed and direct. Even though it's not super flowery, it manages to depict such a wide range of emotions and depth of character. It isn't very telly, it's very showy. There's so many lines I highlighted in this. Let me see if I can find one really quick. This is, oh, hello. Oh, this is, oh my God, the book, this is such a great lighting kit. Anyway, but I just thought this line was great. We thank God the pestle doesn't kill the mortar. If it did, how would we be able to enjoy wonderful pounded yam? There's something about that line that speaks to me, okay? Like there's so many lines like that in here. Right above it, it says, my own daughter is going to be a doctor. After that, she can enjoy all the hard things she wants. Ooh, in reference to, you know what? I don't know, this book just has so many one-liners like that where it's very poignant and it's saying so much, but it's talking about a mortar and a pestle, or it's talking about yam, or it's talking about sex. And I think that there's just something very beautiful written between the language of this book. And I adore her. Okay. I adore her. And I think finally to mention too is this is not an easy book to read by any means. So many things are just happen on the page. It's so vivid. It doesn't shy away from horrible things. This book doesn't shy away from infanticide. This book doesn't shy away from infidelity. This book doesn't shy away from abuse or death or devastation. It just tells you what's happening and how it's happening. And you yourself are going to experience it just as an empathetic person, right? Like I'm an empathetic person. I'm reading this story. And like I said, I had to put this book down multiple times. Like I felt Akin's deceit. I felt Yejide's betrayal. I felt the isolation as these two characters are grappling with their infertility between the two of them. And like I was afraid, honestly, that I would never finish this book. But honestly, I'm glad that I did, because the ending is like simultaneously, it's foreshadowed, it's devastating, it's preventable, but it's also very bittersweet. Like there's something very wholesome about it too. This book is such a beautiful tragedy, and it's written with hope and like a whole mound of love. There's so much love in this book, and like despite the flaws and the mistakes, I was still rooting for the characters and I wanted to see them win. I don't know if everybody is going to feel the same way, but I don't know, there's so much love between the two of them that I wanted to see them have a happy ending at some point, be able to move forward. This feels like such a slice of life, and like I said, it reads like a very long confession. This book, solid 5 stars. Out of all these books, this one really was the like diamond in the rough crazy story that I found. I honestly can't recommend this book enough. And that last book I read was The Tattooed Girl by Joyce Carol Oates. I was going to try to read 7 books in this entire thing, one a day, right? I read 5.5. because I couldn't get through Verity. And after I read this book, I was like, I'm not doing this fucking challenge anymore. I'm done. So I gave up. There's one more book. I did read like the first 3 pages, and I do think I will enjoy it, but I'm going to enjoy it on a later date when I don't have to rush to read it, because I don't enjoy books when I'm rushing them. Anyway, this book, maybe I misunderstand what satire is, but like I genuinely thought that satire was supposed to be like entertaining. And like this one isn't. I think it's supposed to be satire. Everybody online says it's satire. And so, okay, I'm looking for subtlety. It's a satire. The book doesn't stick in my head as anything poignant or intriguing. It's an exploration, I think, of hate through these 2 characters. Though they're meant to be unlikable, they're infuriating in their characterization. I'm not against reading about unlikable characters. If an unlikable character is interesting, I mean, the book I was just talking about, those characters, they commit some bad things. They do some bad things to one another, but they're likable. And there's something very human about them. Whereas these characters were just annoying. Like Alma is strange, the tattoo girl herself. She's a caricature of this dumb, fat person almost. Like the book is fairly fat phobic towards her. And like, I don't think the books should shy away from like actual experiences. And some people are going to be fat phobic. But like, I don't understand why they like kept bringing up how squishy she was. They called her soft so many times. It was weird. And then like, she's constantly described painfully stupid and naive. And like, there's some parts of her narration that are kind of funny because she does have a hard time expressing herself verbally, but like I don't know, like everybody calling her naive and stupid and like this young girl they all want to take advantage of. I did not like that. Like it made me feel gross and I didn't want to read it. And then like there's a point where she like learns about Siegel, the other character in this, his heritage, because he's Jewish, and she just like, has this complete 180 flip. She's like, oh, he's not Jewish? I actually don't hate him. I'm in love with him. Like, girl, my notes say she's in love with him, exclamation point. She falls in love with every man she meets. Oh, it's shallow, and potentially this book just isn't my personal sense of humor. Maybe it's funnier to other people, and like maybe I'm not getting it because I don't think it's funny. I just think it's annoying. Siegel, he's just a self-righteous man baby. When people hate him for his wealth, I kind of get it. Like, girl, I would hate him too. He spends all his time doing a fucking Virgil translation because he's just kind of a hack writer as well. You know, he wrote one good book when he was 26, stealing from the experience of his grandparents in the Holocaust, and then everybody's like, oh my god, you're such a good writer, blah, blah, blah. And then like he can't write anything else now, and like he's lived very little, and like there has very little to say as a writer, so obviously he can't like write another story. The book appears to almost be making fun of him for that fact, and like I got behind that. I was like, yeah, he is, yeah, we can make fun of hack writers, but the storyline is also something I believe can be satirized too as well. Like I think that you can satirize like a pretentious writer who's rich and thinks he has a bunch to say really, really well, but I felt like the message there is like, we start to lose me when you get like Alma being all anti-Semitic towards him, and then you have Alma being abused. I think it's supposed to be a representation of the cyclical nature of hate, but there's also just like a lot of misogyny and fat phobia riddled throughout the book that isn't challenged or questioned. It's just part of these characters and part of the world that they live in. And I mean, I think on one hand, you could probably say that, yeah, like that is just part of these people's lives. But on the other hand, I'm just like, there's something so annoying about this book. It just feels like it's trying to do all of the things. Everybody is hatred and everybody is awful, right? Siegel ends up getting this degenerative disease and he's like too prideful to tell anybody about it. And then like Alma has all these mysterious tattoos. One's like on her face, which I guess can also look like a birthmark. And they like hint at this tragic past, but we don't get any other information other than like someone did them to her in prison, I guess. I don't know. Her character traits, they feel oddly, these two character traits, like the tattoos and this disease, they feel oddly placed. Again, like I just said, it's like it's trying to do too much all at once. Is it about, pride? Is it about pretension? Is it about class and education? Is it about misogyny? What are you trying to say? These characters are just annoying, and you're saying very little and too much all at the same time. Like, this book just genuinely just feels like a character study, but the characters aren't at all fascinating, and they aren't challenged in all of their problematic beliefs. They really are just random characters that I do not care about. And when like the incredibly abrupt ending comes about, I don't find it in myself really to care about what happens to either of these two characters. Also incredibly nihilistic for like no reason. The only useful commentary this book has is one on class and like the access to education, but it's like hidden behind this like anti-Semitism and misogyny. Like I said, Alma's believed to be this naive poor woman who just believes whatever men tell her all the time, and Siegel is this pretentious rich little man baby who can't do anything for himself. Are we trying to say something about education? Are we trying to say something about class? Are we saying that hatred is a product of a bad education and bad upbringing? Is that what we're saying? What are we trying to say here? Maybe I'm the stupid one, but like Alma's hatred of Siegel is rooted in a lack of education, which feels incredibly poignant in today's political climate. But then when he explains that thing to her, that the Holocaust was real, it's explained to us as well, the reader, as if we're being educated, and as if we, the reader, are just as dense as Alma. You know what? Maybe I am. Maybe I just don't get this book. Maybe it is really good satire and I just don't get it. Whatever. This, in some instances, really just kind of feels like a product of its time. There's a lot of random misogyny in it and a lot of fat phobia that isn't challenged by the narrative. It's just like there. Like Alma's stupid because she's poor and fat. Like why'd you have to throw that in there? She's getting abused. Like I understand abuse exists, but like just having it exist in the narrative and be unchallenged is weird. It's weird. And like maybe I'm just not the audience for this book, but like I was expecting something more gritty than like a meager expose of the shoddy education system in America. Like girl, we knew. Yeah, duh, not being educated is going to make you a hateful person. And no hateful person who's uneducated is going to read this book. There wasn't any like expose of like what it's like to be an Alma or to be a Siegel. It just kind of felt like these two annoying people were put in a room together and forced to make a narrative out of it. Maybe I am going to give this book more thought. Maybe I'll appreciate it more down the line. And every time I talk about it, I do find some merits within it. Like everything I can criticize, I do find myself finding an instance within the book where it does do that well. A lot of instances where I really like the things that she uses to express certain emotions. I like a lot of Alma's segments and like how she like uses these run-on sentences in order to like really communicate how stressed out this like Alma character is. There's a lot of really good structure and technique within the writing that I enjoyed. I can't figure out this book. I can't figure out what it's supposed to be about. And it's not like fun, you know, like sometimes it's fun to sit here and be like, oh my God, what's the book about? Let me think about it. It's deep and introspective. No, girl, I just want to throw it away. I don't give a fuck about this book. I'm done. Anyway, that is the final book of the challenge, as I said. Let's do some closing thoughts on this. While I can play a clip here where I am putting them back into the Little Free Libraries, I think that ultimately Little Free Libraries are a good resource. I think that we should invest in them more, and I almost wish that people took better care of them because I have some pretty high quality books. Like some of these books are really nice, and I feel bad putting them outside where I know they're gonna get like rained on. And like I walked up to this one Little Free Library where someone just gone in there and started ripping the books up, and I was like, girl, I don't know. I'm gonna go kind of drive around the city and find like the ones that I know are pretty well taken care of. I'm gonna put them back in there. And like it's good in this challenge that like I tried to read a bunch of them because I do tend to put them off because they're not popular or new or exciting. They're just like random books. I'm glad that I read these random books, even though I only had like one 5-star read technically. I know that there is this big issue right now where everyone's kind of just reading the same books. Like we should branch out more, and I think that these Little Free Libraries are a great way to do so. Ultimately, will I do this challenge again? No. I mean, yes, but like not in the same vein. I'm not going to do a book a day ever again. I think that for me, it's a challenge to read more than 4 books a week. Just because, like I said, I do prefer to like read a book slowly, to sit with the book as it's going. I think the books aren't meant to be binge read all the time. Coming out of this, I kind of am having this conversation, I guess, about like how we read too quickly and don't engage and think about every single book we read. And like not every book needs to be thought about. Like King of Battle and Blood, that book was just erotica. It was just vampire smut. Like, girl, she wasn't meant to be thought about. She was meant to be vampires and she was meant to be sexy. And she did both of those things. And you know what? Then we move on. Okay? And not every book is meant to be 100% entertaining. And not every book is meant to be 100% in like intellectually stimulating, right? Like every book has its own purpose. For me personally, I've been having an issue. I've been trying to start this booktube thing. I watch a lot of booktube. I have all these ideas and all these books I want to read for booktube, but I really enjoy vlogging. I recently made a vlog. I'm making a vlog right now, but I am finding that booktube and like the amount of reading I have to do for booktube is too much, if that makes sense. Like having to film the video, edit the video, read the books, go to work, write books, because I'm a writer. I'm navigating this channel, so this little channel update. I am going to be including more vlog content. I want to do more video essays. I want to like actually sit down and talk about things, and I do have some stuff planned for that. And I do want to make like book content every once in a while and not so much like all the time, like reading. I think that I want to do slower book content and then more vlogs. I also think that like I am trying to find a sweet spot of like over reading and under reading. Like I can read a decent amount of books in a year and get enough meaning from them and like glean a good experience from them. But I think that like also trying to rush through all these fucking books just so I can make a fucking video about them was just kind of annoying, and it felt really pointless. Anyway, donate to your Little Free Libraries. Don't read too quickly. Engage with your books. Give yourself some time to think about them. I try to write a review for every single book I read, so if you want to go check those out, I'm really active on my Goodreads. If you see typos in my reviews, no you didn't. I'm not really active on other social media. I have a Pinterest and I have an Instagram that I'm somewhat active on for both of them. I have a podcast. We haven't recorded an episode in a while, but like we're in discussion about how we're going to do it because some of our friends are moving away and there's just a lot of life going on right now. But like if you want to go listen to our back catalog, you can. Check out one of my other videos. My Hunger Games one is pretty good. Subscribe for vlogs and books